right, good evening. Welcome to the October 9th, 2018 meeting of the Manchester Town Council. Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. So first order of official business, approval of the September 11, 2018 minutes submitted to the members. Any additions or corrections with the minutes?
No, I make a motion that we approve the September 11th, 2018 minutes.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We have a couple of treasurers here. April 2018 treasurers report. We have a motion to receive the treasurer's report from August. I may have said April. I'm sorry.
I make a motion we receive the August 2018 Treasurers Report.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And then the September 2018 check register. Same thing with a motion to receive the check register.
I'll make a motion that we receive the September 2018 check register.
I will second that.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mayor's report, a couple of items here. Brush pickup is this Tuesday, October 16th. As a reminder, shrubbery cuttings and tree trimmings should not exceed 4 inches in diameter. Shrubbery cuttings and tree trimmings shall not exceed 8 feet in length. All shrubbery cuttings and tree trimmings files, again, 4 feet by 4 feet in width and 8 feet in length. Place the cut end towards the curb, and that helps our guys pick it up in an efficient manner. It's really it's a good service that we're able to provide, but we need to kind of keep it efficient so that we're able to keep doing it under the current cost and time structure. Hughes has bulk trash pickup on Wednesday, October 17th. We have had a few calls here. I know about that. If you have bulk trash, please call Hughes. The number here is 410-374-6467. You can also probably find it with Google, or you can call the town office here. It'll be placed on the list so they know that you have something. If it's something like a refrigerator or something really large, they may give you some special instructions. There will be hydrant flushing on Tuesday, October 23rd and Wednesday, October 24th. Leaf pickup, it's hard to believe we're here at fall already, but the leaves are starting to come down. We'll begin at the end of this month on Monday, October 29th, and we'll continue every Monday. That way you have the weekends to clean up leaves and things in your yard. You can drag those out to the curb, leave them in a pile so that we're able to get them in an efficient manner. That will reoccur every Monday until December 3rd. Water bills are due this month. It's October 30th, not the 31st. There's 2 months during the year where we have 31 days, but the bills are still due on the 30th. Halloween, I know this is something that pops up on Facebook, on the community sites every year. We do Halloween here in Manchester on Halloween Day, so it's October 31st. 6:30 to 8:30. Traditionally, children 12 years and younger. If you want to participate, please have a light on at your house. That'll be the time. Again, we get this question every year, like, why don't we move it to the weekend? And those sort of things. Hanover, West Mannheim, or something, I think does things a little bit differently. We do it on Halloween. We talked about having it different a couple of years ago. Was not received well by the community at large, so we're just sticking with Halloween. And that's the time where we get the police. I think we have everybody on, if that's correct.
Everybody's on, yes, sir.
So everybody's on. We don't have any police on vacation or leave during Halloween, so we're able to get some coverage in all of the major neighborhoods to help keep things, orderly and safe, and make sure folks aren't speeding through neighborhoods while have young ones, crossing streets and things. Finally, we have a new youth representative. This has been a pretty successful program for us it's been 6 or 8 years or so. We've had some good ones, so I want to welcome Trent Longest as our new representative. You have some big shoes to fill, but I looked at your resume, and it looks like you're well positioned to do that. I won't read all your grades, but they're impressive, and in terms of your volunteer work in town. So welcome aboard, and hope to see you hit the ground running. It sounds like you're a sophomore, so we get you for a couple of years, which is a good thing. And then finally, our own Mr. Miller has been here 39 years today, I understand.
Yeah, today's my anniversary.
So that makes you 46?
Yeah.
Again.
So congratulations, Steve, and Steve's been a huge part of the town for, obviously 4 decades now, and I guess beyond that. So, 39 more to go, and we can
I
all
don't know
retire.
about that.
Yeah,
I don't know about that. Maybe in Florida.
maybe in Florida.
Well, maybe not.
Halfway there.
There you go.
All right, that's all I have, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Miller and the town administrator report.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. We'll start with the September 2018 administrative report. Under our pending items, nothing in regards to the SHA projects. The Sheets project is still on target to begin January or February of 2019. We did receive some basic comments from the county in regards to stormwater management. And the new liquor store project, I estimate that to be about 18% complete. That isn't moving too rapidly down there. You have in front of you the monthly update for code enforcement. Under miscellaneous items, the MDOT SHA pre-tour and tour meetings. The pre-tour meeting will be held next Thursday, October 18th. That's more for staff. We do have a representative going. I can't make it that day, but we will have representation there. The actual tour meeting with Secretary Ron will be Thursday, November the 8th at 2 p.m. in the Reagan Room at the Carroll County Office Building. That's more for the elected officials, so I want to bring that to your attention. On Monday, the mayor and myself and Kelly Baldwin have a meeting with Jeff Degetz, the Director of Parks and Rec for Carroll County. We're going to approach Jeff in regards to see if we can receive some additional funding for our light project on the athletic field. Currently, as you see there, we have $179,000 through Community Parks and Playgrounds and POS funding. And when we did the anticipated cost, that's about $250,000 to do that project on the lower field. So we're going to approach him to see if we can't get some extra funding for that. A couple months ago, I brought this to your attention, the former police station. Currently, I've had an interested party in possibly purchasing it. Also, I had another inquire about renting it. My question is, would we like to convert it to a community meeting hall as was first discussed? So that's something to keep in mind over the next several months. It's sat vacant now. We've been in this building for several years, so that building's sat vacant. We do have some possibilities down there, so I'd like for you to think about that a little bit. Moving right along, you have in front of you the September 2018 Public Works Report. You can see the monthly water and wastewater status report for September. Currently, we're doing some preliminary work on future water supplies such as well fracking and filtration at the Walnut Street Spring area. And I'd like to congratulate water wastewater operator Ben Smith for passing his water operator certification through the state of Maryland. So we're pretty happy about that. Under wastewater, we had some numerous BG&E electrical issues throughout the water and wastewater facilities over the last month. All the issues turned out to be BG&E issues in which BG&E is looking into what the problem is. Also, we're doing a roof replacement on the Halley Hills 1 pump station. The Whispering Valley, under Stormwater and MPDS, the Whispering Valley Stormwater Facility retrofit, that project's moving right along. It's on schedule. The property owners have signed off, and the appraisal is complete, and Carroll County Bureau of Resource Management will be applying for state and federal permits over the next several months. The annual MPDS Stormwater Discharge Training will be held on November 2nd, and that's sponsored by Carroll County. Under Maintenance, Roads, and Parks, our street resurfacing projects will begin in several weeks. We're preparing to winterize our parks facilities. On September 26th, I had the pleasure of speaking to the WRCC in regards to the town salt management plan, which was developed last year. Our plan will be used as a template for the other county municipalities, so I'm pretty happy about that. Something we're looking into, and I'd like to recommend to the council, and this could be an action item, in regards to Christmas Tree Park Pavilion refunds. We're asking that we would refund all their money back with the exception of $25 to cover administration costs. When I say administration costs, I'm talking about probably our parks supervisor or parks people had to already clean the pavilion, and also the possibility of cutting a check to return that to the person that rented the pavilion. And my last item, not my last item, but almost my last item, skate park Halloween event will be held Sunday, October 28th, Halloween Havoc Skate Jam and Fall Fest, and it's going to be from noon to moon, but actually it'll be noon to dark.
Where?
Skate park. And my final item, I'd like to introduce our new Director of Public Works, Mr. Rodney Coons. Rodney's first day on the job was today. Rodney's in the audience tonight. He brings with him 30 years' experience of public works. He started his career with Carroll County in fleet management. He has good background in fleet management, generator repair, generator technician. He moved into the water and wastewater field, worked there, did a fantastic job. Finished up as operations project manager for Carroll County Government Bureau of Utilities, taking care of jobs from start to finish, from RFPs all the way following the jobs through to the end. Also, he's a welding instructor at Carroll Community College. So we want to welcome Rodney on board, and you'll see a lot of him because starting next month, he'll be presenting the Public Works Report to the Mayor and the Council. So we're going to try something new and see how that works out. And like I say, today was his first day, and he came back for more tonight. So hopefully he'll be back tomorrow morning at 7:30. So,
Welcome.
any questions for me?
So you get a possible, and welcome, Rodney. Thank you. Yeah, hope to see more of, a lot more of you in the future coming up. So you get a possible action item. Is this just and this would clearly be an administrative policy.
I brought that up to the folks because you folks set the prices on the pavilion rentals, and I thought it might be wise to have you approve the refund of all but $25 back to the people that cancel out the pavilions.
How often, and I don't disagree at all,
Mhm.
right? I mean, the one item you didn't mention was the opportunity cost of potentially renting it to somebody else.
And that's a
And
possibility.
the rentals,
Yes.
kind of help keep up with maintenance, right?
That's correct.
It's not cheap to keep these things going.
This last season, I would venture to say probably, Kelly, I'm going to look over her, probably 10 to 12 cancellations.
At least, yeah.
Are they coming like right up against the deadline? So if like somebody's gonna say like, I want July 5th, and then we get to July 3rd, and they're saying like, or is it?
Really has no rhyme or reason, to tell you the truth. It's,
Yeah, a few have been after the fact when it's rained and so forth, where some people use the pavilions anyway, while this one person maybe didn't. But, it's been across the board, different reasons.
So does your recommendation include a time frame?
No, it would be just a strictly cancellation. If they canceled, they would get all but $25 back. Some of the municipalities that I talked to, and also the county, actually, it's a non-refundable refund. They give no money back. They said, you're under a roof, so if it rains tough, And I don't know if we want to get down that road.
Yeah, I think the bigger issue here is just the administration of kind of going back and forth.
Correct.
I'm all right with it, if you guys are. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's an administrative thing, so if you guys are comfortable, I'd say maybe just a motion to support the administrative change would be in order.
Right. I will make a motion to support the administrative change in regards to the Christmas Tree Park Pavilion refunds, where when a person requests a refund, we return all but $25 to cover the administrative costs.
Correct.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Is that the only action item you had, Steve?
That is correct, yes,
There's
sir.
a decent amount of activity. All right, well, any other questions for the town administrator?
Yeah, Steve, just a quick question. I know the anticipated cost of the ball field lighting is just a ballpark. What does that include, generally
That
speaking?
includes
Upper
everything.
field, lower field?
Yes, it's new wiring, it's new lights, it's new poles, everything associated, new panel box, new breakers,
CND field, softball field?
just the lower.
Just lower field.
Yes, that we went after that because it's more of a multi-purpose field. And then we have to make a decision what we're gonna do with the upper field lights. That's-
So then lower field, the height has to be
That's
such
correct.
that it's
That's
conducive
correct.
for baseball?
Yes.
I think the height, and it, I don't know the numbers, but it was like, for baseball, it had to have a certain amount of lumens, or however they were defining light in an area. I think the second piece of it was to cut it in half, because the upper field is obviously easier for us or someone else to do something ourselves on, where like these real tall ones, it's just,
Right.
it's not really an option.
Correct.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions for Steve? None, move over to the chief.
Good evening, everyone. I normally do a PowerPoint, but I caught some flack from one of my colleagues. So I'm reduced to paper again for a little bit. September 2018, the Manchester Police responded to 113 calls for service, 32 of which were out-of-town calls where we assisted Hampstead and the Sheriff's Department. For the month, we did have one Part 1 crime, which involved stolen money from the BB&T Bank here in Manchester. It was a teller. He was trying to do a little bit of embezzlement there, and it didn't work out, so he's criminally charged. We did criminally charge 7 persons for the month. The breakdown is 1 for possession of marijuana in the park. 2 persons were charged for possession of crack cocaine on Main Street. 2 persons were charged for assault second degree, 1 of which was a juvenile, 1 for fraud, and then 1 was an arrest warrant for violation of probation. Traffic enforcement consisted of 97 traffic enforcement stops, 19 state citations were issued, 65 verbal and written warnings, 1 suspended driver, 12 repair orders, and the main focus was Swiper in the Halley community, Halley, Main Street, Southwestern, and the main offenders for Swiper and Main Street from Lineborough Road to about the town were teaching staff and students. And actually, the sheriffs jumped on board and issued a lot of citations to the Manchester Valley students. They started to pass on the right-hand side. Once they couldn't get through the makeshift bypass through the neighborhoods, then they started to shoot up through the shoulder of the road. And Jimmy DeWeese assisted me with that. Swiper, I think we have it under control. That was a big problem with the stop signs. Again, a lot of it was teaching staff and parents. They were just blowing through the stop signs. So that's where we try to issue a lot of warnings versus citations, but 3 strikes, you're out. Overdoses for year-to-date, there has been 408 cases in Carroll County, Maryland, 175 of which were heroin-related, 29 were fentanyl-related, and we have 55 fatalities year-to-date for the Carroll County area. September, 44, 13 of which were heroin-related, 1 was fentanyl-related, and we had 6 fatalities. And just a couple days ago, we had, Doug, what was it, 8 in a 24-hour period? The main focus appears to be Westminster, where there are 152 year-to-date. Hampstead has 11, Manchester has 7, Sykesville has 2, Tawnytown has 21, and Mount Airy has 15. As the mayor said, Halloween's fast approaching. We'll put a little bit of a safety flyer out, just some reminders for the kids. Glow sticks, stick together, stay out of the street, and your police department's going to be out there to make sure traffic's under control. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
I do have one, it might be for both of you guys. Have we received any information back from the state on the light at Halley coming from the Swiper side at night?
It sticks.
Yeah,
Yeah, no. So those lights are controlled in Arundel Mills in Hanover. It's a big switchboard. And they've gone back and forth, and they've had their trucks out there, but they haven't fixed the problem yet.
yeah, I understand the process now is to pull up and jump out of your car and hit the crosswalk button and then run back to your car, which is not a good system.
I've heard that. I don't recommend it. but
No.
I've heard that.
Chief was working on that one. I was actually working on the one at Maple Grove and 30.
Yeah.
Because that was coming up red, and there was no vehicles coming out of Maple Grove. So that was passed on to their district also, and I've gotten no response back.
I understand the middle school's having the same problem.
Yes.
It'll stick. I think it was a couple Fridays ago, a frustrated citizen yelled at me on my answer machine for the red light for the middle school.
For the middle
And it
school.
was doing the same thing. There was no traffic, but it turned red, and it would hold traffic up.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And then the other problem is from the Circle to Halley, none of them are synchronized. Correct. Which causes a big problem.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for the chief? Do we have a sign-in sheet? Thank you, Kelly. All right, Mr. George Hughes, if you don't mind, so those of you that need to come up to the microphone, that way we're able to capture everything. State your name and,
Good evening, everyone. My name is George Hughes. I live at 2975 Dillon Drive in the Halley Hill development, and I've been asked by several of our residents in our area to address an issue that's popped up over the past 3 to 4 weeks. There is what I'll call a grassy area surrounding a town pump / well that is adjacent to actually my property and 2 other neighbors in the neighborhood. Kind of creates a nice big U. It's a nice area to throw a football, play a little wiffle ball, throw a blanket down. I personally have lived in that house for 14 years. Several neighbors here lined up in multiple rows have been there longer than I. And it's been a great gathering area for our children to play. They throw the football, they play wiffle ball, they play tag, they sit, they talk. I can say, personally, I've kind of helped maintenance it since it's attached to my property. I know the town would come out and mow it from time to time. However, you're not going to come out every week like a normal backyard and mow it. At some point, it's going to get a little higher than maybe we would like from a visual aspect or rodents or whatever it may be as it backs up to a farm. So I personally, along with several other neighbors, have maintained that property for the town. Over the years, the guys come up, I think of Bill Black directly, always goes, man, it's nice that you cut that, we don't have to mess with it. And I do that. And in turn, the kids have played there and they have a lot of fun. About 3 to 4 weeks ago, the police, Manchester police, were dispatched to that area and asked the children who were at that time playing some football to leave the facility, and they were told that they were trespassing. I happened to be outside at that particular time tending some gardens, and I believe the officer was the first one out there, and we talked. We've known each other from some other incidences here up at Manchester Baseball, where I'm the vice president for them as well. And we discussed it. He said, look, we've got a call, and I obviously said we've been there for many years playing. We've never had issues, 14 years. The kids have never been asked to leave. The kids have not been disrespectful. The kids have not made a mess. The kids haven't done anything. And any Gatorade bottle or trash that may have been left behind, to be quite honest with you, my wife, myself, we've picked up. And so we were pretty shocked. The officer obviously didn't want to enforce it, but he's doing his job as I told him I respect, and the children needed to respect as well. He mentioned that maybe I would be smart to get in touch with Chief Hess. I actually got a phone call from Chief Hess and a little bit of a giggle, I believe, if I remember, that, he's disappointed that he had to dispatch one of his officers for the first time for children playing football on the grassy area. Obviously, what it's brought up for us and what we're here tonight as a community to ask is some support / clarification on that particular area. Obviously, it's town-owned, we understand that. But at the same time, there's a lot of grassy areas throughout the town that people walk their dog, maybe sit and throw a blanket down or whatever. We feel as though, there's some miscommunication as to what that land stands for, and we'd like to know, in our opinion, there are areas posted. There is a well there, I don't know if anyone here is familiar. Pump well, Steve, I guess you would know.
It's a well, right?
It is a well.
Yes.
And it's fenced in, and it is posted that, town property, no trespassing. There's a road that accesses down there as well, which is posted, no vehicles, But the grassy area in general, is not posted, so if you would walk down my yard towards that grassy area, there's no posting of no trespassing. Hence, our interpretation, some of our neighbors did a little research. Technically, by law, that's not trespassing. We have not been informed not to go on there. The town did not come to us and say, you can't go on there. So we're not notified up front that you're not allowed there. So in our mind, as a community, this is a great place for our kids to play. As you know, we'd rather them be there throwing the football or wiffle ball or up at Sheets selling drugs or knocking out, light posts or whatever. This is a community. We had a variation of 6-year-old kids to 20-year-old kids playing in harmony, getting along with each other as neighbors. We'd like that to continue. So with that said, Chief Hess and I spoke, and he said, we need to look at it from the aspect, this is town land. Could you please, lay low for a little bit and let us do our due diligence on our end? Which we did, and we gave it some time, and we talked to the children about it, and they stayed off. Some time passed, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 days, and again, I was cutting the lawn one day, finished up, the kids went back out there and played. It had been 10, 12 days. We hadn't really heard anything. We thought, well, why not? Let's just make sure we stay on our property, not expand into anyone else that, would not want them on their front lawn, side lawn, or whatever, in which the kids were doing, and the police were dispatched again. And this happened a couple times in which the officers even said, look, I've been watching for 10, 15 minutes. They're just staying in this particular area. They're not expanding into someone else's personal area, so they're not really doing anything wrong. But again, it's town property. We need to do our due diligence and research, and we step back again. I've made a few phone calls up here. I'm fortunate enough to know Ryan since our kids played football together at 6 years old, so 14, 15 years that I've known him, and I asked for his advice on how to handle it and so forth. We were asked to come here and present our case, and I've basically presented it to you in the sense that, I don't believe that the kids are doing anything wrong. I don't want to go into why potentially the police are being called or whatever. I think that the officers themselves could witness that the children are not being disruptive. You've seen the area yourself. It's kept clean. They're not doing drugs back there. They're not being mischievous in any way, shape, or form. We have spoke with the kids as far as, don't expand out to anyone else. I think they've done a fabulous job because for 14 years, nobody cared whose lawn they went on, so they just were used to expanding themselves, and they have stopped that. So we would like, as a community, for you all to consider not dispatching the police every time the boys go out and play some football or some wiffle ball, just based on the fact that it gives them an area to play. I know it's not a quote-unquote playground. They're technically not trespassing by law. So we would ask that you would do that, and would like to take a moment to give props to Chief Hess, the officers that were involved. I think it has been a great learning experience for our children because they've had to learn to respect the officers, to respect the process. They all just wanted to go back and play, and we were holding them back. There's not great, the weather's not always been great. Here's a beautiful day, and we've had to tell them to stay off until this was resolved. So I think it's been a good learning experience for them. I think the officers have done a wonderful job talking with the kids. And I know they didn't want to kick them off, but they were doing their job, and the kids understood that. There was a day, I believe it was Officer Roberts, Corporal Roberts, and I'm not sure the other officers, Doug, I'm not sure. They spent a good 15, 20 minutes speaking with the boys about, how it had to be handled. And that particular day, I'll be honest with you, there was a 20-year-old out there, there was a 16-year-old out there was a 7-year-old out there. A wide variety of kids getting along, having fun, not really hurting anyone. So we would like some clarification and hope that you would allow those children to do what they've been doing for, over 14 years. Several of them are now, 28, 29 years old that grew up playing down there, and that's basically the gist of the story.
I have one question, and
Yes,
maybe that'll
ma'am.
help me understand. My question is, what happened all of a sudden that the police have been called over after 14 years? One,
I think to simplify it,
you don't have to mention names or anything.
I do-
just
I
tell
will
me the
not.
basics.
there is a home that's adjacent to that area as well as my own. It creates a U. There's a home here, and then mine. This particular home, for many years, for 13 of the 14 years that I've been there, the owners that have lived there have had children that have allowed kids to play there, and they've never said a word. They've helped cut the grass. And I believe, again, the end zone got a little long towards their yard.
Okay.
The new owners have moved in there, and I believe that they just don't want the kids to expand that end zone onto their property, which we as parents, 100% respect, we did not know. We were not notified. So in our opinion, instead of that particular owner coming to us and say, hey, could you please keep the police were called.
Okay, so it's a new owner. Okay.
It's a new owner. Now, when the police were called and believe, I'm not sure what officer was there. I know Officer Roberts was there. We pulled the children together and we said, look, see this here where we stopped cutting? That end zone, you can't go up there anymore. They have adhered to that to a T since that day.
Okay.
And the 2 other times that the officers have been dispatched, they sat in way, kind of hiding, and watched the boys, and I think they would come up and attest that they were not in any way, shape, or form on some private property.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think, Melinda, I mean, my understanding, and in full disclosure, you know, George and I had a conversation. Like I said, we know each other from 15 years ago or something, but, and, you know, he invited me out, and I went out and looked at the areas. I believe the chief did, you know, too, just to put eyeballs on it, you know, not from a Google Maps kind of thing. I think it's, kind of comes down to, there's a piece of land there that surrounds a well, the well's fenced in, the fence is posted, no trespassing, and then you have grass. And the grass is flat grass, especially in Manchester, is gonna attract people because we don't have a ton of it. And I think people have always just kind of played on it the same way that when it snows, people go around the ponds sometimes because there's hills and the kids sled, or they walk their dogs and that sort of thing. I think sounds like, I don't know the new neighbor, sounds like there's a new neighbor that, you know, one would take exception with people coming onto their property, which is understandable if that's their prerogative. But there may be some disconnect between trespassing on their property and then calling and saying that the kids are trespassing on somebody else's property, meaning the town's property. In my opinion, and you guys can all have your own opinion, or we can discuss or let these guys weigh in too, I don't know that the town is interested in fielding a lot of calls and using police resources to shoo people away from just land that happens to be owned by the town that's surrounding our utilities. Now, if somebody was climbing a fence and messing with a well, or covering up lights, or jamming up drainage, or changing swales, that's all a different story. If it's just you're walking your dog, you're playing catch, you're you know, doing whatever people do, and you're not damaging the land or changing it, I don't. That's my opinion. Is I don't see an issue. I'd rather people use it than not use it, I guess. But
Well, Mr. Cuse, first I appreciate you recognize that police are just doing their job. And there's a reason why we just can't let children play all over all the town property because of liability,
Sure.
dangers, and whatnot. But my mind goes to, kids can go down the football field anytime they want and play and never be shooed away. So is there something we can do to redesignate that, some piece of that, to do whatever it takes to treat it like the field? Clearly, we want to keep kids away and respect people's property lines and keep them away from wells. But is there enough that we can do whatever it takes to designate a piece that they can play on?
I agree with you. I mean, I totally agree that I don't see any, I mean, I'll tell you, I live in Manchester Farms. There's a lot of open area that kids are always playing on. If I ran a kid off every time they were playing on the open area, I probably would have some bigger issues in my neighborhood. But I totally agree with you, Dale. I don't see a problem with it. If there's going to be any damage to any property or anything like that, then I would say absolutely not. The first time we have damage, it's over.
Absolutely.
You know, there's no more. But I don't see a big issue with it either. The only concern I have is the liability part of it, and I don't know how we could, if we post something or whatever, I don't know.
This just, and I probably have more conversations than you guys have, both with town. I did call them Michelle and John. I don't know, Stephen, I may have talked briefly about it, but this is my opinion. If you were to designate it as parkland, I mean, one, I would encourage you, I'm sure George let you park in his driveway for a minute and walk down there. Take a look, and the pictures are one thing, but take a look at it for yourself and see if it seems like an appropriate place to change the designation of the land. To me, it doesn't. And the second piece of that, I don't know then at that point if it would be required to meet different tests, such as ADA requirements or putting a porta pot back there, which really would seem kind of crazy. And then the second thing would be, are we as a town, are we interested in shooing somebody? What's the difference of two 12-year-olds playing catch or playing frisbee as opposed to somebody walking a dog that's cleaning up after their dog? And do we want to designate every pond as dog walking area? Now you're allowed to walk your dog here. It's just like, you know, I mean, are we any more or less liable if we change designation? It's like,
No, but I can kind of see what Councilperson Wilder's saying as in regards to looking at the plot of land. If we just kind of I don't wanna say roped off, that's not the right word, but made sure that they just stayed within the area away from certain property.
I mean, I think as long
Yeah.
as they.
I don't disagree. I think
they
if you
just need
looked
to
at
stay
it,
off the
it has a
people's
natural
yards that don't want them
boundary.
on the yards.
It pretty much,
It looks like there's a slope from the one picture, but
right,
it's like a
and so
slope
that- yeah,
down, Mm-hmm.
that's graded down from my
so then it
backyard.
looks flat.
And then it's flat. I mean, and you have a neighbor with a little bit of slope and it slopes up that way. I mean, to be quite honest with you, the real answer, if it was me and I didn't want anybody on my property there, I'd probably put up a fence and it would end. It was suggested to that particular resident and, you know, they've chosen not to
And
do
that's an
that.
expenditure that they might not wanna deal with, and I get it. I mean,
I
I get
don't
both,
want-
I see both sides, you know?
I don't wanna make it, us against that neighbor thing, cause I don't believe it is as much as if they respect their property, the children now know that, they didn't know that. And I had an opportunity to one-on-one with that neighbor for a few moments, and I said, it would have been just nice to know that you had a problem with it, because to be quite honest with you, this happened about 3-4 weeks ago, started, and they've been living there over a year. The kids have been playing there forever. I don't understand why quickly it became a problem. And I said, it would have been nice just to come to us as parents instead of skip the parent level and go to the police. I said, it could have been resolved, and your frustrations as a resident could have been solved. If you didn't want kids running under your deck or retrieving a ball, then the children should respect that. And I will attest, and I believe all the moms and dads here will as well, once those boys were told they're not allowed on there, they don't go there. They used to walk down that way, it was kind of an access to get there, you kind of come down to get to the field. They've been told not to do that, they've been told to come through my property. If that neighbor does not want someone walking through their yard, they have that right. And we have instilled that upon the children, and I think the police could attest to that. They've been out twice and kind of laid low to see what the kids were doing, if they could, catch them sliding a little bit too far to the right, and they have not. And to be quite honest with you, what's very disappointing right now is that the kids aren't playing there very much right now. There are several parents in the community that are concerned about the police being called. They don't want their children to be subject to that. So there's not a lot of playing going on there right now, which tells me, what are they doing? I mean, they're inside doing this. We all want the kids outside playing, as a sports guy and a representative of Manchester baseball, we want them out there playing, not breaking into concession stands as we dealt with a year ago with some teenagers. So we want our kids in our community under our eyeballs. I mean, my wife's a stay-at-home mom. Several other moms are stay-at-home moms in the area. Their eyes are on that backyard. Their eyes are on their children. We'd like to keep them close to us. We personally bought that area because it gave that opportunity to say, it's kind of nice, you can go throw a frisbee, you can do whatever. And we've done so for 14 years, and I know that this town has never had an issue with any of our children in over 14 years. And now, because I think someone wanted them to stay off their own property and didn't communicate that well, I have to stand before you and ask for some support and clarification on that property.
So I think that maybe one of the other issues with designating it and trying to change the use of it is there's no real natural access or parking to it, except for the access road that comes off Friday or with like, I don't know, maybe there's basically a spot for a truck to pull up while he's doing something to the well, but that's really it.
No, and you're absolutely right. I understand that. But it sounds like they're violating something. That's why police were called. So what can we change so that they're no longer violating something?
Well,
My understanding of the Maryland state law on trespassing is it needs to be posted. The land is not posted as no trespassing. The cages are posted
Are
as no
they- so are
trespassing. The
they-
road
are they-
access is, so by law, unless we're put on notice
Yeah.
by the town, we're not trespassing.
So are they committing a crime?
So under Maryland state law right now, no.
Okay.
The fenced-in area is clearly posted. That's the well. It's a fenced-in, it's 4x4 fence, it's got posting on it, stay out of it. The driveway coming down is clearly posted. When you get into the technicalities of the property, it's not clearly posted. Entry points, or presumed entry points, need to be posted. It needs to be clear that once that person steps over the line, they're trespassing. Even if you post it, the latitude still falls into the town. The town makes the final decision. No one can force us to charge anybody with trespassing. And when I say us, the town, the police are going to force what we need to enforce. As far as if you were to go that step and you wanted to charge, then you would have to send notices out. They got to be warning notices to the people in the area and to the kids that have been trespassing. You got to give them a fair shake. You gotta let them know that where they are, they're trespassing. I can tell you as a police chief, we're not gonna be running sting operations for football games. There's other things that I need to focus on in the town. We brought the crime rate down. I intend to continue my focus on that. But the calls come through 911 dispatch. We don't dispatch the calls. The dispatcher dispatch the calls.
Yes, sir.
And if anybody in this room calls, if anybody in our town calls, we're coming. If we can't come, the sheriff's gonna come. So no matter what, you're gonna get a police officer there. But the latitude falls with us. Even if you post that entire property, it's up to us to decide whether or not we're going, well, it's actually up to the town to
So the
decide
big,
whether or not they're going up.
the biggest issue is the kids need to
Issue
stay
of
off the
juvenile
property that's not theirs.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Right, I mean, it's the
If there's a
bottom line.
neighbor, if there's a neighbor in any community that doesn't want people on their property, then fine, make those
Right.
around you know, aware that you don't want people on your property. But, yeah, I think, I don't know, I don't think the town should have much of an appetite for, do
Steve-
you mind coming up?
Yeah.
I'm Sarah Halford.
She needs to be at the mic.
Do you mind coming up, I'm sorry. Otherwise, you're,
My name's Sarah Halford. I am the president of the Hallie Hill One community. I think what they want really, or at least what this neighbor wants, is some sort of resolution as to what her property line exists. So if we can maybe offer putting a natural tree line there and even having Hallie Hill pay for it, I would be more than willing that we could, as a community, come together so that those kids know that not to go past that tree line, for instance. There is a bush that marks there. She wanted to put no trespassing signs on her property. I told her that she's more than welcome to do that, but she needs to affix them to something. So she can't just put a big sign in her backyard that says no trespassing. She would need to fence it off. She wasn't willing to do that. So we even offered, another neighbor suggested putting a piece of string across the there to tell the kids that's not where they're supposed to go. She didn't want to do that either. So we don't have someone that's cooperating very well, so maybe if we interject some sort of solution for her, then she doesn't have any other choice but to say, okay.
I think my opinion would be if the Hallie Hill community wants to help pay for a tree or a shrub row or something we can help you figure out with a pretty high degree of certainty where it is without
I don't
paying
think
for
she
an actual
realizes
survey.
where her line is part of the
If you don't
problem.
mind me interjecting just quickly, the town did come out and they did paint the corners, they're spray painted right now. They came back out and cut the lawn to identify where her property is, which her lawn's about this high right now, and the town's is nice and neat. So we have addressed, and I do believe, because I didn't know even cutting it, where she ended up. Now we know definitively where the boys can and can't go, just by the painting. There is a bush in the corner, and
There
there
is a
now
bush
is
in the
a
corner.
large tree by your, it goes kind of like that, with your painting right about a
Correct.
foot or so in
That
front
is
of
correct, yes.
So there now is some idea of a barrier. You know, before, we were just kind of telling the kids, look, where Mr. George cuts the lawn, you stay over here. So and I personally, I've been there 14 years, I didn't know where my own corner was. I'm off in a couple of areas, just because, you know, you kind of guess, you try to stay where you can, and it is now defined. In the past week.
Yeah, we were out there last week. We were concerned that we may have to get a surveyor in to survey, but we were out there, a crew of us went out there and we
I
were
see
able
the
to locate the
pictures.
pins. Good to go.
Have the police explained to the complainant that this is, you know, that,
Yes, ma'am.
that they're okay, and she
Well,
still is not cooperative?
we've talked to her. I mean, I'm not, as a police chief, I'm not gonna say, hey, kids, go play on there. And I think
Right.
everybody can understand that. But we have talked to her, yes, ma'am.
Unless somebody feels like we need to vote on a policy to,
I was gonna ask Steve, as a town manager, is there any issues that were by us saying?
I've been out there more in the last 2 weeks than I have in the last 10 years.
Then, I mean,
It's a buffer zone, it's a 100-foot buffer zone for the well site.
okay,
And we never received any calls, never. And like I say, that's, you know,
I'll tell you my opinion, and everybody can agree or disagree. I don't see an issue with the kids playing back there. The only issue I see is, like I said, if there's an issue with the well. If they start climbing the fences, if they're messing with that, then I I would agree that we would stop it totally. But I don't, from what I understand, there's never been an issue.
No, we've never.
As long as they stay off the yards that people
Yeah,
don't
some
want them
are
on,
off her property.
I don't see a problem with it. That's just my opinion. I mean,
My question is, though, I don't think it's gonna stop her from contacting the police every time.
Well, here's what I would like to add. If it's within our purview to enforce or not enforce, correct? Regardless, then what's stopping us from telling this citizen that these boys are allowed to play? They're not allowed to play in your property. So if that becomes an issue, feel free to call 911, but if they're not entering your property, they have the town's permission. I mean, if that's our latitude,
It's our latitude.
then what, there's nothing stopping us from doing that.
That's a good point.
We were just waiting for the decision tonight.
That's my decision.
Are there,
I agree.
I agree.
I absolutely agree. I want to see the kids playing there. Are there any insurance implications by allowing kids to play in an area like that?
I think some of it, I looked into this a little bit, I don't think, we're not issuing a permit for them to do it.
Right.
We're just not doing anything about people walking or throwing something on our property.
If they go there on their own free will, okay? Obviously, anybody can sue anybody for anything. I would hope in this situation, with us saying, yes, it's great that everybody's kids play there, that would not ever be an issue.
Yeah.
And if it did become an issue, then again, it would be one of the, okay, then it's over, you know? But I really don't see an issue allowing the kids to
Yeah,
do
the
that.
same way
I'd
that
much
we-
rather see them there than, like you said, hanging at sheets or hanging out in the street or whatever they could be doing.
Yeah, same way, we don't provide permission for kids to sled or issue a permit. We also don't really do anything about it. If they do it, they do it, but
Yeah,
we're
so
not really charging them with trespassing, and we're not issuing them a permit either.
all I ask is that we keep it as friendly as we can with the neighborhoods and that it doesn't get into which I'm sure it's already a little difficult, but let's try to keep it as friendly as we can so that, you know.
Hopefully it dies down, I mean,
Yeah, and once I think maybe they realize that they're allowed to do that and that they stay off their property, I would hope that eventually it's gonna just fizzle out.
it will. You and I have been here almost 20 years, I don't remember one of these coming up. So I don't know, like, I don't think we should, like, be a dog chasing a tail too much and try to, like, chase every issue that
I used
pops
to
up and
play
create a
for
new
my
rule,
front
right? It's
yard.
just
I
like-
just
Yeah,
deal
the
with
sad
theirs.
part in Hallie, section one, I mean, they don't have a nice, decent place for the children to play. I mean, they have a open space land on that hillside, which you can't do anything there. Yeah, I mean, they have no decent area to throw the football around, throw the frisbee around or whatever, and, yeah.
How dare someone buy it?
Okay, so are we all in agreement that we think it's, as long as they stay off the neighbor's property that doesn't want them on there and they don't bother the wells, that it's not an issue?
I think the answer is, we don't have any interest in charging people with trespassing on that property that are doing things that aren't damaging.
Okay, well then I'm in agreement with that.
Not to say sheriff's department might not show up once in a while.
It doesn't mean,
Right,
if she calls, someone's going to show up.
we have to.
I think
So-
insofar as our department, we can communicate to her that we don't have, there's no need to call us if you believe someone's trespassing on us because we're not interested.
Correct, I understand.
But we can't
that.
stop her from calling.
We can't stop her from calling.
You can't stop
But is there
anybody.
some sort of communication that we can give her that lays out what the game plan is, so to speak?
Let us circle back up with that, because I think that gets to what Dale was saying, is I think we need to stop short of anything that seems like we're changing the use of the property to say like, hey, it's a buffer zone, we don't care if you play catch here, to, you now have a piece of paper that says you own special rights to it.
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Hess, but I believe, like, in this short amount of time, the police were called 5 times.
Sounds right. I'm
I
not
don't
gonna
know if
dispute
it was
the number.
5, but it was 3 or 4.
Yeah, so,
And it's the first 3 or 4 in the 5 years that I've been here.
and all the kids scatter, they wait 10 days, they get back on, and then the police are called again, and then, so we're back and forth. Now, that's, I mean,
Now the police can say, unless they're on your property, don't call us.
And they don't scatter, and I mean, kudos to all of you. The kids are very respectful.
oh, no, they don't run, but I mean,
They're
they
very
scatter, they
respectful.
stay home from, they don't go
Yeah.
on that property. When they're told to stay home, they do, they stay home. They're very respectful.
Well, I would say, as far as parents, if they're doing things like we all believe they're doing things down there, they're under no threat of prosecution from the town because they're playing catch there. If somebody were, do you mind coming up here, sweet? I can repeat your question if you don't want to come up.
Is it any way possible, because I almost feel like she's using that the police have to respond to harass the rest of the community into not using it? Because anytime she sees anybody set foot that you're not gonna prosecute anyone for trespassing just by playing football, and the police work with you. Can there be an agreement that the police don't even have to come to a call where she's just tattling, saying, it's not my property, she's on the town's property?
Yeah, I got you. So the question for the record was that,
So that, because it scares the kids, every time they see a cop car, like my son won't even go, he's like, I'm never going there again. And I sat and had a conversation with her, and I said, we've lived here for 15 years, no one has ever called the police on children. You called the cops on my son, who's 10 years old, and you stand next to him at the bus stop every day.
yeah.
And she says, well, I didn't know these kids. So all you have to do is step outside and ask them who they are. But
You guys mind coming up? We're gonna come up with, so the question for the record was, is it possible to have something the police not respond? My understanding, and I'll let the chief weigh in, is no, if you call the police are coming. It's not really we can't, for a lot of obvious reasons you could probably imagine. So, if I walked outside and said, you look like you're about to slash my tires, and I call 911, they're gonna show up, and if someone calls the police are gonna show up. Do you mind stepping up? I know we're supposed to have everything on the record.
Okay, so my name is Sharon Hughes. I'm George's wife. I'm just wondering, and this is really not really what you can do, but as a community, we haven't had a phone book per se, address book, since our neighborhood was brand new. And one of her complaints was, I believe, is that she did not know who the parents were or who to call. Maybe, possibly, if we put an address book out there, so that if she said, who are you? I'm Tom Smith. Go in there, look up Smith. She has a parent's phone number now to call. Maybe,
You guys can certainly do that in your HOA. I mean,
that's a
your choice.
Yeah,
suggestion.
it's probably an HOA
That's
thing.
right, that's between you guys.
everyone has to give permission or have their.
Oh, absolutely, and we did that years ago.
Even
We
though we
did when
don't
it
do
was
Google
brand
for
new.
it, but-
My question is also, when does it become a nuisance call when she just continues to call?
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know that we have that answer for you tonight. This is what I'd probably say to you guys, and Chief, I'll let you. Now that we have taken this step and gotten to this board, and I believe there's a consensus that the town does not have an interest in criminally going after people for walking a dog or throwing a football. Let us communicate that, because I think we're all of a pretty similar mindset from the town. If things persist, then we'll figure out what that next step is. I don't know that we're gonna be able to solve everything or have, like a magic key to fix, because we can't control other people's actions. And I don't even know what the answer is, but I would defer to the chief. If things persist, then let's figure out what we can do.
Can I make a suggestion real quick, Mr. Mayor? What if the problem persists, okay? This is a straight-up piece of property that the town of Manchester owns. If the problem persists, what if the HOA would request to the town to basically call this the Halley Hills Recreation Area? What's wrong with that?
It
That
probably
might
come
help
with-
us with the liability issue.
We can insure it.
They can insure it.
Yeah.
Just a thought. I mean, maybe the problem will be solved tonight. I don't know, but it's something to think
But
about.
they would probably need to look into that. That's not a bad suggestion.
Yeah.
Because it would still
The
come
way the
with,
designation would not have to be changed, which is gonna be tough to change to open space or parks
Yeah.
land. But it would be a recreational area, town of Manchester recreational area.
and they would just come with the same covenants, because it would
Yeah.
still need to serve as the buffer.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something to consider. It's only a half an acre of property, but it's something to consider.
I said from the beginning, the idea of redesignating it somehow,
Somehow,
It's not, it's like
Legitimize
probably
it.
twice the size of this room.
yeah,
It's not.
I fully support that.
Hi, my name's Katrina Amigo. I live at 2955 Abbey Drive. I'm also a resident of Halley Hill. And I do not have a child at this point in time that's involved in this, but I run a daycare, and I'm friends with a lot of these kids and their families. And to expand on Mr. Miller's thought, is it possible if it could be designated as a recreational area, maybe post signs, I've seen them in other neighborhoods, where it has children at play. And even if there's just like a sign posted in that area, it would designate that area that there are children that are playing in that area. And maybe this neighbor would back off a little bit. It's just a suggestion.
That, or, I mean, I think if we talk about it, maybe after, have a little time to think, to come up with some ideas. But I agree with Steve, a recreational area would be fine, and maybe if she's made aware that it's a recreational area, if we all agree, then I think that'll end the problem, as long as they stay off her yard.
And I think the parents are doing a good job. I think Mr. Hughes is doing a good job. They're funneling the children down in certain areas, and they're trying to keep them away from this residence walking through her backyard or side yard to get down there. And I think they're doing a good job.
Mr. Hughes is gonna need some grass seed, because they're gonna wear his yard out. But if he's okay with it, then, hey. I mean,
All right, so
Okay.
you guys maybe look into that, and then we'll regroup depending on, dependent on how things proceed from here. But I think it's a good discussion. Anything else before we move on?
Can I just clarify? So you guys can send a communication to her or anything like that?
So we can go play. That's the nutshell.
People can,
They're not gonna stop.
no.
But the backup one, Steve said the problem. What is the problem? Is the problem the kids playing on the ground? Is it the problem that the woman keeps calling? What's the problem we're solving?
From my end,
Right.
I think it's a combination that the children are passing through her property to play on the property back there.
Well, as long as they're not passing through her property, we have no
Right.
problem.
Now, I think one of the complaints was a lot of noise back there. There was,
I mean, if it's midnight during the week, I agree, but if
From
it's
the children
6 o'clock in
playing.
the afternoon,
but
It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
okay. I mean,
I just don't want to make a problem.
right,
I don't want to.
exactly.
unless we do.
The neighbor that lives adjacent to her also has allowed those children to cross in her neighborhood and avoid, or her yard and avoid her home. So it's just, it's a mental thing. So, she sees them approaching her home and then all of a sudden they're walking her yard with her.
well, hopefully with what we discussed tonight, everybody can work together and figure it out. Hopefully, we've,
I think what this group really wanted was they wanted to know if the children were we had kind of people just yelling back and forth. The town doesn't have any interest in prosecuting kids that aren't doing anything wrong. So and if we verbally say that to her, I think since the chief has been down there, we've provided some clarity. I don't know that we've had a call or an issue since you've been down.
I don't think so, no.
So let's see if things settle down. Because if things just settle down from here, we don't have any problems anyway. So I think Councilman Shelley just kind of said to me, it's like, let's not fix problems that aren't there yet. Sometimes it'll create other problems.
They need to be white. She can't hear it.
Who's that?
Can't hear, so it has to use the mic.
Okay. Are we good to move on? Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. I'm glad you guys were able to make it in. All right. This is not just a coincidence because somebody said Tom Smith, but Mr. Tom Smith is up next on the.
I needed one introduction, but two will work all right. What I'm here about is something that happened to me that was uncalled for by the police department this year. And when it was all more or less straightened out, I went to the mayor, and the mayor didn't respond the way I thought he should have. So now I'm going to explain to you, all of you here, what happened. And your name?
He's a youth
I
representative.
know he is. I asked for
His name's Trent.
Trent. I want you to listen. January of this year, police called me up to their office, tried to find out why, and they said, well, we got something for you to talk about, a question or whatever. So I got up there, and they accused me. Well, they had me sign ask questions first, so I had to sign something first before they would even tell me what I was being charged with. They charged me with passing counterfeit money, which I did not do. I had nothing to do with it. I never saw the bill before in my life, which I told him. And I asked him about fingerprints. He said, well, there's too many fingerprints on it, they couldn't distinguish it. But I found out since then that, well, mine would have been near the top or the top ones. They said, and I was told that they can take fingerprints that are overlapped with other ones and distinguish them. So they didn't do any fingerprinting. Right off the bat, they accused me of this. I told them I didn't have anything to do with it. Then he started with all the different questions and lies. About where it happened, and somebody pointed the finger at me. They showed me a photo, and I said, well, yeah, that's me standing in the store. But I could have, you know, they could have found 1,000 photos of different people standing in that same store that day with no problem whatsoever. But this particular person, and they showed me a photo of it, the person behind the counter was down on their hands and knees behind the counter while I was standing in the front. They said it was a woman, and I thought it was a man. Couldn't tell, but I actually thought it was a man when they showed it to me, and they said it was a woman. Whether she was the one that supposedly pointed the finger at me, I have no idea. And then later on, this happened sometime later, Chief Hess said that for all they know, with the photograph, it could have been play money. They had no idea what it was. But in the meantime, I tried to tell them I had nothing to do with it. I never saw that bill before in my life because I identified my bills before, especially $100 bills like I was supposed to have passed. And it didn't have any kind of numbers on it that I put on my bills. And I thought that might have convinced them because then I pulled my wallet out and showed them what I had in it, the numbers, and it wasn't on it. Then later on, after they started questioning about computers and printing them up and where I get them and all this and that, they finally figured out that I had nothing to do with computers, nothing to do with cell phones or any of that kind of stuff. They went on to my wife, trying to accuse her of questioning me about her passing these $100 bills in another store, store number 2. I told them right off that they were crazy, and they insisted that they had a photo of her, which I knew was false. They said that she was making them with her computer. She was passing them out to me and others. They want to know if possibly she was getting them from somewhere else or if I was getting them from somebody else. And, they, you know, nothing but lies coming from them, the police department. A couple of days later, I get called back up again, and the officer that was a charging officer called me up, and he had some papers for me to sign. And he says, this paper says this and this. I said, I'd like to read it. He says, you're not going to read it, you're going to sign it. I said, I want to read it. He said, no. So back and forth about 3 times. He says, you're going to read, I'm going to tell you what's on this one, you're going to sign it. I'll tell you what's on number 2, you're going to sign it. I'll tell you what's on number 3, and you'll sign it. Then you get to read them. Well, I said that I'm not signing it without being able to read it. He said, well, no, you're going to arrest you then. I basically told him, you do what you have to do, but I'm not signing them. So he said he was going to go to the county the following day, get the paperwork, and come and arrest me. Well, I went about my business, and nothing ever happened. But then I finally got the lawyer, because this all happened over the weekend, and I wasn't able to get a lawyer. But the lawyers that I finally talked to, all 3 of them told me that I should file suit against that police officer for the way he acted. And I said, well, I just want to get it straightened out. So I finally got a lawyer, and he basically told me the same thing. He said the way he acted was out of line, was wrong. So he called Chief Hess to find out what was going on. Well, it turned out it was a summons, which was never told me. The word summons never came out. So he asked if we could come over to the police station and get this paper and sign it. Well, it was told us it was already in the mail and sent to the district court, that I have to pick it up there. Well, this was a Monday. So they took this mail from Manchester to Westminster. It took till Friday to get there. Every day they had me calling to find out if it was there. And they said, no, it hasn't come yet. It finally came on Friday. I went over there and I said, when I signed it, instead of 3 papers to sign, I only had 1 to sign. So what the other 2 I had to sign for, I have no idea. I only had 1 paper to sign. And then I asked, I said, well, this was mailed on Monday, right? And she says, well, I don't know, I'd have to check. Well, she went and looked and checked, and she came back, and she says, it was not mailed on Monday. So I don't know how it was sent, I don't know when it was sent, but it wasn't mailed on Monday.
Mr. Smith, I hate to cut you off. If there's a specific complaint, you're kind of just telling a long story about mail and an officer. If you have a complaint or a comment, you know, we're open, we're accommodating, but, you know.
The gentleman before me, you didn't cut him off, and he said the same thing several times, and the others got up and said the same thing similar to that.
No, I think we move it along.
All right, so, but I haven't spoke near as long as what they did.
Well, there's not a timer, but what I'm saying is if you have something other
The
than,
complaint is about that man and the charging officers for not doing their job right. I called, eventually this went to court for a hearing. It was immediately thrown out, expunged. They were supposed to have 4 witnesses there. None of them showed up. 2 from the place of business, 2 from the federal department on counterfeiting. None of them showed up. My attorney even went to the prosecuting attorney ahead of time and says, you know, you have nothing. He says, well, I know I don't, but he says, I want to hear what they have to say. They weren't there. None of them showed up. After I came back and this was thrown out, I had the meeting with you. I tried to talk to you one-on-one and you wouldn't do it.
I think you asked for a meeting,
I asked for a meeting with you
and I
and
took a half day
myself.
off work and met with you, right?
You said that Mr. Hess would be there, and
So-
you'd have somebody else.
Again, you asked for a meeting with me. It would be inappropriate for me to meet with somebody if I think I'm walking into something, because then you're going to say something that was said. I don't want to record anything that we were saying. I don't know what was going on. I had no knowledge then. I don't know anything about a court case now.
And that's what you asked me, and I told you. And that's why you said you were going to have Mr. Hess and one other person there.
Which I think is what we did.
Well, you had 2 there instead. But when I told my wife that, she says, they're going to gang up to you. I'm coming. So my wife came as well,
Right. I don't think we ganged up on you. I think we listened to you.
Well, I wasn't going to let you gang up on me. I was going to tell you what I thought. So, and I asked you right out before the meeting started, I said, if I was in your position and that gentleman and the other officers did something to a resident in my town, I would have them fired immediately. Isn't that what I said?
I believe you said something to that effect. So
Yes.
if we have a process, I'm not a police officer, I'm not a judge. If there's a complaint with what the police officers and police chiefs do, there's a process by which you can file a complaint. The state police, I believe, will get involved. I didn't memorize the process, and it will be investigated and adjudicated appropriately. It would not be appropriate for me when somebody complains and says something about something I know very little about and says this person did something, for me to, quote unquote, fire them immediately. That would not create stability for the town. I think you would understand
Well, what I
that.
was really after, if you remember, was apology from you because of for the town's behalf. Because there's a paper here that I asked, this is a criminal report that goes out immediately from the police department and from the county office, courts, stating my name, address, phone number, and birth date, and whatever.
Yeah, not something we put out there. Again, that's I believe, standard when there are legal issues. Everybody knows what that stuff is. It's not the role of the mayor to get involved in any
But I think you
criminal
ought
or
to know
potential
what
criminal
goes on in your
proceedings.
town.
Well, I try to stay
He
as
said he's a
abreast.
resident of town, he looks out for the town. A resident wouldn't treat another resident that way. I know I wouldn't want him as my neighbor.
So you asked me for a meeting, I gave you a meeting, and you wanted me to apologize for something I didn't know anything about.
Well, I was in the process, I was telling you. And this has been 6 months and I haven't heard a word from you. I would have thought you'd at least call back and say, look, I talked to the police chief, got his opinion, I can't do a thing for you, but you didn't even do that.
Okay, is that,
There were
Are
so
you-
many mistakes on this report that when our lawyer saw it, he said to himself that he told me that he actually started laughing. And
so is your question for me, if I review all police reports and then try to find instances where the
No,
town should
I'm-
apologize?
my complaint is, you don't have a clue what goes on with your police department.
That's a question?
No, that's a statement.
Okay, is there something we can help you with tonight, or a question? If that's what your point is, then you're on the record. And
Well, I think that you ought to talk to your police chief and make sure this doesn't happen again.
Okay.
Because there's been others in the town within a stone's throw of my place that has things of this same kind of nature happen, to where they had to expunge it simply because they had nothing to do with anything, and the police knock on their door and hand them a paper like this and tell them they're charged.
Okay, I will give you my word, I will look into whether or not the police are harassing people and unduly charging them with crimes and making them expunge them.
But like I said, the way this was filled out, it's got my phone number under my name here. And
That has
That's
nothing,
all, sir, that's all, that happens to anyone who gets, investigated by the police. I
What,
mean,
my
that's
phone
not,
number?
not your phone number, but if I got investigated by police, I would have the same thing. I mean, I think that, and I'll speak, I'm not a police officer, but I will say, and I'm not saying the police are perfect by any means, but I feel like they're doing their job, they do their job to the best of their ability. And I'm sorry that you were unhappy with the situation of how it happened, and if there was a problem and it got thrown out of court, obviously the courts took your side. I don't know what else we can really do to try to.
If any of you would be in my position where you were charged with something you didn't do, and then they tried to say your wife was involved with it and even doing more, you'd be thinking the same thing I'm thinking. But something's gotta be done before it happens more and more. This is the town of Manchester. Like I said, there were so many mistakes on here, and I said my phone number, 410-239-6900. Is that number familiar to anybody? That's the police number, not mine. There's several other mistakes throughout here, the same kind of stuff. The officer didn't even read what he wrote. He didn't even know what he wrote.
Well, am I incorrect by saying that comes through the courts, or?
I'm not sure what you're
Okay.
looking at.
All right,
It's written by the police here, the charging officer.
okay, well, all I can tell you is, like the mayor said, I feel like he can look into it, he's spoken to you, he had a meeting. I don't think anybody did anything on purpose to try to accuse you of something you didn't do. I think they were, just like in this situation, they have to go and they have to investigate it, and they did their part.
They didn't. That's the thing. If they would have, they wouldn't have found my name listed anywhere on any kind of personal check. My lawyer couldn't find anything. I got probably 24 letters from other lawyers that wanted to represent me, and one of them even said that he looked for a background check on me and couldn't find my name anywhere. I go to buy cars, and they want to run a background check on me. They can't find my name anywhere. The police department could have done that, and they didn't. Maybe they'd had second thoughts and wanted to look into the person that pointed the finger. That person was supposed to have been working at that place for 5 years and had no problems. I lived in this town for nearly 50 years, had a Manchester address for another 7 or 8 years because I lived just outside the town limits. And the remainder of those time, I'm age 70, remainder of that time, I lived within a 3-mile radius of the town square.
I understand totally what you're saying. All I'm saying to you is, and I'm not a police officer, I think they were doing their job, or to the best of their ability.
They didn't do it to the best of their ability.
Well,
They
that's a matter of
checked.
opinion, sir. I mean,
Okay.
we
Like I
can't,
said,
I'm not
if
gonna
you'd
have
be
an
in my
argument. Joe.
position, you'd feel a whole lot different.
Mr. Smith, I think we're gonna move on. I think if there's a complaint with the police department, we can assist you with what the proper protocol is to have that complaint looked into. But this board and or me, we don't review police reports, and we don't investigate our own police officers.
And you said something about, there was ways that I could have dealt with this. There were. Three lawyers told me to start to file suit against the charging officers. And then after it was all over and done with and thrown out, I had the opportunity to sue at that time as well. But because it would have taken a minimum of 90 days, and if I'd actually filed suit, it would have been 3 years, I didn't want this going on for 3 years or even 90 days, which it did. That was minimum to take care of it.
Okay.
But I had other things I was doing this summer, and I plan on doing again next year. I didn't want all this to interfere with any of that.
Okay, I understand.
Otherwise, the next time, you will be sued if this comes up again. And if I know of somebody else in the town that this happens to, I'm gonna back them up and give them a little bit of advice.
Okay,
Because the way you treated me and my family was totally wrong. And I think after a while, you people maybe decided that you made a mistake, but you won't admit it. You never do. None of you.
So you realize it's against the federal law to write on money. You said you marked it.
all right.
Then charge me with something I did, not
All right.
something I didn't do.
We're gonna move on. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Tanya,
No, that's
so that's same issue, okay. I just wanted, and the writing's kind of on top of each other, so you can, this is
That's the next one, too.
Alicia, okay.
We don't wanna be on that roller coaster anymore.
Yeah, Michelle Martin,
Hi, I'm Michelle Martin. I live at 3053 Main Street, and I got a violation. I've gotten several violations before. I think I had a car that wasn't tagged on my lot and all that. I just have some questions about how do you all determine, like, is there somebody that goes around and looks for cars that don't have tags on them?
I believe it's complaint driven, but I'll let,
Okay. In
It's
this
not, no.
case, they.
is your question about the cars?
No, that's just, I've gotten
Okay.
one of these letters before.
All right.
This is a new letter telling me that I am in violation of section 250-66J of the Code of the Town of Manchester, because I have chickens on my lot. So my question is, how did they come up with the section 250-66J as opposed to just the one, chapter 65 about animals?
The question is, how did they come up with that?
How did they determine that I was in violation of this ordinance as opposed to applying the ordinance of chapter 65 about the animals?
Does that one address chickens and fowls and something else specifically?
Well, the animal one says, no person shall allow any horse, mule, cow, calf, horned cattle, sheep, swine, poultry, cats, or other domestic pets to run at large. So I assume, when I first got my chickens, I literally went to the website and I looked up the ordinances, and it said, you can't have your dog that, if it's not on a leash. You can't have chain link fence. You can't have a vehicle that's untagged. I mean, they had like 10 normal ordinances, and I didn't see anything about chickens, so I got some chickens.
Were chickens clarified a few years ago?
Yes. Actually, 250-66J, it started because you live in the BL district, Mrs. Martin, the business local district.
Right.
And then it's referred back to what can be done in that specific district.
Right, I understand that. My question is, why are my birds considered agricultural as just pets? As just animals that are
They're
pets?
chickens.
My
They're
chickens.
Chickens,
Which
correct.
are fowl, which come under 65.
That's correct.
And what if I had a potbelly pig? Would you determine that to be agricultural?
If it would be kept outside, yes,
Okay, that was my question then.
correct.
So then this ordinance comes from the zoning master plan from 72 or 79?
It comes from the town code,
Right.
right, that is correct, the
Okay.
town code.
Which is maintained on our website.
Right. When did you come up with the fact that if you had chickens, it was going to be deemed agricultural? That's my question.
Wow, that's been many years, that's probably, I don't know the exact date, but you're probably looking back into the 80s or 90s.
It looks like this code came from 1979, from what I could
established.
And possibly that change was, as Councilperson Wilder mentioned, the code's updated, numerous times throughout the year. When the changes are made, it's posted in the code and also posted when that change was made. So it's possible 1979 is a possibility when it was changed. That is
Okay.
correct.
So because I couldn't find this, because it was nowhere when I went to look for it, I have these 4 chickens now that I've invested $500 in. I live in an area where there is one owner resident on my block from High Street up to 3027. So everything is commercial or rental property. I'm not real sure why this should apply to me, number one, because I don't consider them agriculture, I consider them pets. And number two, I can look at my backyard and see a cornfield. So,
Reason is, you still live, your residence is still in the business local district.
right,
So you have to consider the rules that govern that specific district. So you have to look at that. Now, your pets are outside. I believe we received concerns that your pets were running at large at one time.
well, yeah, as they grew, I didn't realize that they would fly over a 6-foot fence, so
And
now they're contained,
in a fenced-in area,
yes.
but you're still within that business local district.
So that's my question, what does the agricultural have to do with the commercial business?
I think what he's trying to say is that you can't have agricultural animals on a business.
In that specific BL district, it's the same with other districts throughout the town.
But
The
they're
R-
not agricultural animals, they're my pets.
That's how you view them. They're classified in our town code as agricultural animals.
Okay, so how do I get an exception?
An exception for
Yeah, because,
chicken.
I mean, in the town code, when you go online and it lists all the things, like you have to have your dog on a leash, it says you can't have chain link fence. I can count chain link fence everywhere. I can go over here and look at your old police station, it has chain link fence
You're,
on it.
you're correct, Mrs. Martin, and that's a code section that was changed within the last 5 years. We do not allow chain link fences anymore. That was previous to the change.
So what do you do with the chain link fences that are there now?
They're
They're
grandfathered
existing,
in.
they
Grandfathered
would
in.
stay. If they had to be replaced, they would not, a chain link fence would not be allowed.
So what if I put my chickens in my garage?
They would be contained.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine.
Okay.
They wouldn't be outside.
Well, they'll be outside during the day when I'm there, just
Well,
like I
then
put my
that's not
dog.
allowed.
Can't, yeah.
You can't do that.
Well, there's dogs that are on leashes in the backyards.
They're on leashes.
Mine aren't agricultural, they're pets.
I understand they're your
Yeah.
pets, but the charter states that chickens are agricultural, unfortunately. I
Okay,
mean, just-
so again, can you give me the process for what I need to do
Right.
to change where I am to allow me to have pets that are chickens that are outside?
Well, you could approach the mayor and the council to see if you can get that entire business local area changed, and that's probably gonna be slim to none,
Okay,
because the entire Main Street area is business local. So I
right,
don't think the mayor and the council is gonna go along with that. You can also take the avenue that you can approach the mayor and the council with a change to the ordinance that says chickens would not be considered agriculture. And that's another option you could take.
is there some way that you came up with how many chickens it is that would be agriculture, or if you just have one chicken?
It's one.
I don't think we.
It's chickens in
we spell
general.
that
Address
out.
numbers.
Okay.
I don't think
Yeah.
we spell that out.
So if there was no objections from my neighbors about me having the chickens, could I could I come before you all with a letter stating and signed by all my neighbors that they don't have an objection to them? I mean, what is it that makes them, it's not that they're not allowed in this area, they're not allowed within 200 feet of another property.
You have to have it, yes, 200 feet. If you have an area 200 feet from the closest neighbor, in the specific district that it's allowed, then it is allowed.
Right,
Chickens are allowed.
okay. So where did you come up with the 200-foot rule?
I can't answer that. I
That's
mean, that's
fine.
the administration at that time. It could have been back in the 70s, whoever mayor and council was at that
Right.
particular time.
And
Can't answer.
my guess would be that the flavor of Main Street has changed a lot since then. They probably went from a lot of owner-occupied area. I mean, it's technically a subdivision where I live
when I bought the house, that's what the county plat says, but it's not a subdivision anymore. It probably was 45 years ago, before it became commercial.
Can't answer that.
So, is there a procedure that I can come before you all with signatures from anyone within 200 feet of my property that doesn't have a problem with my chickens to get an exception to continue to keep my chickens?
I can't speak for the mayor and the council, but I don't know if that's gonna help sway their vote or not. The mayor and the council are the ones that has to change the ordinance. So you have to first get them convinced into changing the ordinance. Now, if you come in here with 200 signed signatures from your neighbors, you know, I don't know whether it's gonna sway their decision or not. But that ordinance would have to be changed, it would have to be rewritten, and the mayor and the council would have to accept that ordinance change.
Well, what's the purpose of the ordinance?
To keep chickens and other agriculture animals like pigs and ducks and whatever out of that particular area.
And to keep them from becoming a nuisance to other neighbors.
Right,
Hence the 200 feet.
but I checked with my neighbors before I got the chickens.
I understand that, but that doesn't, we have to look at, the group has to look at the whole Main Street corridor, the whole BL district, the whole R 7500 district, 15,000 square feet district. You have to look at everything. We went through this back in 2015, and actually what we found, we actually sent one of our staff members to a training. The actual chickens is not a problem. The problem with the chickens is the spread of disease from other birds, from the chickens to other chickens. And that's the concern that the health department has. And that's what our staff found out during this training that they attended. And
That's
this was
odd,
back
'cause
in 2015.
when I went online and looked up free-range chickens and what the qualifications were and what people had to do, they indicated that it was more important that you keep your chickens away from wildfowl and birds because they carry more of the diseases than domestic free-range chickens do.
Can't answer that. I'm only reporting back from what we found out in 2015 when this problem come up.
Well, I want to keep my chickens, so I would like to find out what I can do to try to keep my chickens. I have $500 invested in them. They're my pets. We eat grapes. We eat peanuts on the back deck. They wander around the yard. They're quite cute and they're very entertaining. I have a large enough yard to support 4 chickens, and I don't have any neighbors that seem to be complaining because I keep their coop clean on a daily basis and I keep the straw inside their pen clean on a weekly basis, which goes into my compost pile, which I'm probably not supposed to have either. And you might have a problem with my garden that I have in my backyard too, but I couldn't find any ordinance about that.
I thought I'd heard maybe somebody did complain. There was a complaint that came in.
When they were flying over the 6-foot fence and then I had to put the bird netting up on top of it. I didn't think a chicken could fly over a 6-foot
You have to
fence.
clip their wings.
Yeah,
I can't bear to do
Well,
that.
I'm sorry.
you
but
have
that's
to,
what
otherwise they're
keep
gonna
them
break a
from
wing,
flying over
so
the fence.
that's what happens.
Well, now I keep them in, so. Any suggestions?
I don't know of a path.
You don't know a path. What am I supposed to do with my birds?
I can't create a path for you. I'm saying I don't know of a path.
Or changing town code, that's pretty extreme.
Changing
Right.
town,
That
I mean, it has to
says
fit the rules.
I
Like,
don't
town
want to
code
change
says-
the entire code.
But we
I
would have
just
to-
Well,
want
aspects of the code that address that.
Could we just
specifically.
redefine it?
It's still a whole process of changing it to explain, and then you're gonna have, and I'll speak for myself, but we had something with this before, if I recall, in 2015, because somebody was upset about the neighbors that had chickens, and it started, and then it just snowballed. So I think we would, if we say, okay, well, we'll look at what you're gonna propose, we certainly will look at anything you wanna propose. I'm not gonna tell you we won't. I think everybody here will agree. If you have a excellent idea other than us going through and changing the whole code, because I can promise you there's gonna be a neighbor that's gonna come in one of the neighborhoods and say, no, I do not want that.
Well,
I mean,
and-
so
And
it's
I
like,
understand certain
know.
neighborhoods wouldn't want it. These people would not want people with chickens in their neighborhood because they have these nice manicured lawns. I have a backyard. I have no front yard whatsoever because I'm on Main Street. I have businesses all around me. I can see a farm across the alleyway from my backyard. So I didn't think that anybody would have a problem with a couple chickens in my backyard.
I mean, the only thing I can really say is, like Steve said, if you wanna propose something, we will certainly look at it. I cannot make you any promises on anything, but you're welcome to propose anything you want, and we'll review it, and then we'll go from there. I certainly can't tell you can't.
Can I get a reprieve from my letter until I find another avenue?
If you present something to the mayor and the council, within 60 days for them to review, I don't see that there's a problem. We can put a stay on that.
Okay. I will see what I
60
can do.
days from today's date.
Sounds good. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, okay. Those are all the folks that signed in. Was there anybody else that had any comments briefly? Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. Councilwoman Smith.
Our meeting is tomorrow evening, so I don't have anything tonight to discuss as far as any of my committees.
Okay, Councilwoman Miller.
Very quickly, last week, Kelly and Steve met with a town resident, and she had a lot of ideas about utilizing town hall property, Christmas tree park property, potentially the carnival grounds, the pool, that kind of thing. They met with her. She's got a lot of ideas for activities that would benefit the town and the community. They sent me an email to get in touch with her. I got that email while I was away. I have not gotten a chance to touch base with her, but I will before our next meeting.
Okay, Councilman Michelli.
The next Manchester Area Merchants Association meeting is, it's the 18th at Dutch Corner at noon. Guy, I went to the website today and there's under construction, and you got it late.
I like the sign in the back.
We do have an announcement. As I said, the MAMA website is still under construction. I do visit it on a regular basis, and typically I touch base with Guy before the meeting, but he was tardy, so we'll go with that. But anyway, Halloween costume and cakewalk contest, October 29th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Gary Business Center. Everybody know where the Gary Business Center is? It's right just beyond Sheets. Anything else? I was going to bring it up, but I didn't have the dates, but I knew it was coming. Okay, that would be it.
Maybe I did not mention during my report period that I did attend their last meeting, the dinner, and spoke, and we actually had a pretty good hour-long conversation. One of the takeaways from that, which I think is relevant to this group, was as we look at parking in town. So are there things that we can do to remove some of the barriers, parking being one of them? There were a few others, but I know if somebody were to say, and I want to open up, just make something up, office building, right? And have a couple home offices that folks could rent in there. I know a lot of that leverages off of the county code. They would like us to look at any impediments to town businesses coming into town and setting up shop that we may be able to address. So I think it's a little longer term answer, but more to come on that. Councilwoman Howe.
We had a meeting last night with the parks. On September the 30th, they had that full moon yoga, which was very successful. And there's plans to do more of it out at the nature center. Also on Saturday, October the 20th, there is a stargazer program. It is in the late evening and there's no charge if anyone's interested. And if you want to visit the website, there are a lot of interesting programs for kids that are upcoming. So visit the Charlotte's Quest Nature Center. That's it.
Very good. Councilman Wilder.
Okay, Planning and Zoning Commission did not meet last month, but we will be meeting next week. Everybody should have their copy of the 2018 comprehensive plan, which I thought they did an outstanding job working on that. Next week, we will have an organization coming to propose the construction of a car wash off Maiden Lane. And it's just being informational at this point, not seeking any kind of approvals, just some ideas. And then there'll be a recommendation for the council to approve ordinance 235 to adopt a new zoning map in accordance with the plan. That's just a formality. It's something that's done every time a new comp plan is put into effect. So that'll be coming to us, probably presented in November, voted on in December. Again, just a formality.
Okay.
That's it.
Then our new youth representative, Trent Longest. Do you have I know you're brand new. Anything to report on from the school?
Yeah, I have quite a few things to report on. Some recent events and some things that will be upcoming, most likely before the next meeting. So I just want to start with a quick introduction. I'm Trent Longest, like Mayor Warner said. I'm a sophomore at Manchester Valley. I'm the vice president of our class of 2021. I'm also a Boy Scout working towards my Eagle rank. I run cross country, I play the trumpet, and I would like to thank Mayor Warner and the town council for selecting me, and I'm excited to see what I can share. So, one of the recent things that came up, somewhat recent, was the Maverick Stampede, which I think had a pretty decent turnout. There was a lot of school spirit, and I think it was a great way to start off the school year. And also, the girls' soccer team participated in a community service event recently at the Sensory Garden at Manchester Elementary School, which I hope will inspire other teams to do something in a similar way. The football team won one of their games at FSK this past Friday. I think the team and the school was glad to hear that. And upcoming is homecoming is coming up soon, which means the start of Spirit Week next week, October 15th. And they started selling tickets today, and the homecoming football game is against Liberty on the 19th at 7 p.m. The Fine Arts Department is hosting 3M Night, which is mystery music and masterpieces, on the 25th. And I'm in that department a lot, so I hear about it frequently, but I haven't heard too much of it outside of that department in the student body. And finally, there's also, not finally, there's another thing. The school is hosting a blood drive because it's around Halloween time, and the students actually seem pretty excited for that, which, blood, I guess. And now finally, the drama department is putting on their musical Pippin on Fridays and Saturdays in early November, so we'll see how that turns out. And that's all I have.
Very good.
Good report. Good.
Very good.
Anything else for this group? If not, here a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second it.
All right. Good night, everyone.